Welcome everyone to the game between Domaraju Gukesh, the world champion, taking on Jorden van Foreest. At the third round of the Prague Masters 2026, Gukesh entering in to the premises there. It's a beautiful hall at the Don Giovanni Hotel, and Gukesh has drawn his first two rounds. This is round number 3 as he greets the main organizer of the event, Peter Boleslav. Gukesh has had draws in this tournament against Hans Niemann and Nodirbek Yakuboyev. Today he plays with the black pieces against Jorden van Foreest. It's going to be an important game for Gukesh because Jorden is someone who is in tremendous form of late. He finished third at the Tata Steel Masters in Vaikanze, and then he went to play Edis Gurel in Turkey, a very talented youngster, and beat him 4.5, 1.5. Incredible. So, and in this tournament itself, he's had two decisive games. Jorden, he managed to beat Vincent Keimer in round 1 and then lost to Anton Guyaro. Gukesh is always a picture of calmness before his game, and there you can see him just writing down his score sheet and getting ready for the encounter. A very important tournament for Gukesh, and there you see in the distance Jorden van Foreest arriving. And I think Jorden is someone who's greatly impressed by Gukesh in general. He has great respect for him. And the players are ready. Handshake there. There's always a game of the day prize before things begin. And by the way, before they start the clock, Gukesh was like, I pressed the clock, so maybe I just don't want to make the move counter change. And he's asking the arbiter if he could reset the clock before starting. And he just we have Pavel Votruba, the very experienced arbiter there, setting up the clock, and handshake, and off we go. Let's see how this game pans out. Jorden with the white pieces. What's his first move going to be? Brings all the pieces together. He plays pawn to e4, and Gukesh, very interesting what his choice is going to be, and Gukesh responds back with e5. We have e4, e5, and Jorden goes knight to f3, attacking the pawn in the center. I've never ever seen Gukesh play knight f6 here. The Petrov, he goes for knight to c6. And now bishop to b5. The Ruy Lopez is on the board. a6 played, attacking the bishop there. And now the bishop comes back to a4. We have the main line of the Ruy Lopez. Gukesh comes with his knight to f6, attacking the pawn in the center. And whenever these top players play these main lines, it's always interesting to follow because these main lines are so well established. What is the new idea that Jorden is going to bring to the table, or Gukesh is going to bring to the table? He goes b5, bishop b3. Generally, you don't go b5 so soon. You go bishop e7. Or maybe if you go b5, you want to play the archangles with bishop to c5 now. But Gukesh goes pawn to d6. So he's choosing something which is not super common. I mean, okay, firstly, c3 played here by Jorden just to prevent knight a5 winning the bishop because the pawn on e5 is protected. Bishop comes out to e7, and I think we are transposing into the main line. Rook e1 played, and now if black castles, h3, we are in the main line territory of the closed Ruy Lopez. But Gukesh goes knight a5, and this is lesser played. It has less games, but Gukesh seems to have come prepared. After bishop c2, he goes c5. And Jorden, maybe out of his prep now, needs to think, and he goes pawn to d4, although it seems like he's still in his prep. Very quickly played. Queen c7 may be the main move here, but Gukesh, very concrete, takes the pawn on d4. Pawn takes d4. And now maybe he wants to play the move bishop g4. Yes, he pins the knight. Okay, Jorden can push the pawn. He can even take. I think Jorden is in his prep here. He's just playing it so quickly, d. And now if you play de, I can take here and take on e5. So that's the reason why he first takes on f3. Queen takes f3. And pawn takes on e5. So very interesting position. Think about it. Like, it's symmetrical. Black has given up the bishop pair. White has the bishop pair. White should be better here slightly. But what black is saying is that, hey, I have this idea of knight c6, knight d4. Castles. And once I get my knight to d4, your bishop pair isn't as strong. And on top of that, Gukesh is at 1 hour 35 minutes. Bishop g5 played by Jorden. And now the rook is coming into d1. He goes knight c6, trying for the central square. Jorden brings the rook in, but knight d4. That's what black is fighting for. That's the entire thing that black has got for giving up the bishops. Knight d4, attacking the queen on f3. The queen goes to g3. Now attacking e5 pawn. And Gukesh goes queen b8, a huge blunder. And look at Jordan's time. He has 1 hour 5 minutes. He's thinking about his move. I mean, Gukesh could have just played knight d7 here and he was okay. But he goes queen b8. And now the tactics in the air. And Jorden, boom, takes on d4. What a move. What a move by Jorden van Foreest. He takes, and now the point of this all, e5. You know, the queens are opposite each other, but e5, excellent move. And now, even though this is hanging, he takes on c3, Gukesh. I mean, if you went knight h5 here, queen d3 with a mating threat and e7 hanging, it doesn't work. So that's why dc, queen h4. What a move. And he has to play knight h5 because any other move is not working. Let's just try to, and he takes on e7. Understand all that has happened here. The moment Gukesh played queen b8, Jordan's spidey senses were alive. He took here, pawn takes, and pushes the pawn to e5. Now, here's the thing. The threat is not to take here because the queens will get traded, but the threat is queen h4. And here somehow Jorden had calculated that there's no way out for Gukesh. For example, if you go knight h5, queen d3, threatening a mate, threatening e7. So let's say you go g6, I take here, dc, and after bishop f8, at the very least, white is simply a pawn up. So in the game, Gukesh went pawn takes knight. And now, of course, if you take here, then black is completely winning after queen takes g3 and taking on f6. But queen h4, and the knight is hanging, and there's a mate threatened here. If you play something like h6, e takes f6 is game over. So that's the reason why here Gukesh went knight h5. And now after bishop e7, the rook is hanging. The knight is hanging here on h5. And so Jorden is going to get back his material, but with interest. After bishop takes e7, g6 was played by Gukesh here. He defends the knight on h5 and Jorden takes the rook on f8. Bishop takes f8, queen takes f8, and b takes c3. So white is a pawn up, but that's not the big issue here for black because pawn is weak and can be attacked. The bigger issue is that the king is weak and e6 is an excellent move here, just opening up the black king. But Jorden goes queen e4, attacking the rook, and this gives black chances to stabilize with rook e8. And that would be a very cool move. Gukesh plays it and he's back in the game. He's worse, but he's back. And here Jorden goes queen e3, and now just take the queen. Rook takes, knight f4 with the idea of knight e6 and rook c8, and black should be okay. But Gukesh goes rook to c8 directly, and this actually helps Jorden a bit because now after e6, a beautiful move, he's able to stay a pawn up in this endgame after the queens are traded. Queen takes queen, e takes f7, an intermediate move played by Jorden. King f7, and rook takes e3. So now just look at the position. White is a pawn up, but more importantly the bishop is going to be amazing on b3. Black has his own trumps. King is a bit active, c3 is weak. He needs to get the knight in the game. That's the problem. Bishop b3, and maybe a good idea is knight g7, knight f5 now to get the knight into the game. He goes a5, Gukesh. g3 played by Jorden, taking away the back rank worries. Knight goes back to g7, and rook check. The rook is entering into f7. Well, Gukesh's king is going to play an important role here. He goes in, king e5. And now boom, rook to f7, attacking the knight and the pawn on h7. The knight comes up to f5. And now if Jorden takes here, it will become a race after rook takes c3. So he very wisely goes after the b5 pawn. Gukesh defends it. f4 check, quickly played. Jorden has 4 minutes on the clock. He needs to make 6 more moves to reach move 40. Gukesh is trying to play quickly on the time as well. King d3. Wow, this is becoming quite a race. Instead of this, maybe a4 was also possible. It was an interesting move and maybe better. But g4, a4 played. And now if you take on f5, I take on b3, and this rook endgame should be drawn. So that's the reason why Jorden has to be very careful here. But there is an excellent move, bishop g8. Oh, and Gukesh pressed the clock, but it didn't get pressed. And somehow he's surprised, like, what happened there? And Jorden is like, I also don't know. Because I made the move. And Gukesh was like, maybe I forgot to press the clock. But actually, I think he just missed the flap there of the clock. Bishop g8 played. Attacking the pawn on h7. Knight comes back to d6. But now a very, very good move by Jorden. Rook d7. Rook comes back to c6. And the thing is, while Gukesh will create his own passer after king takes c3 and the b pawn rushing down, this race is a very, very dangerous one for him. Bishop takes on g6. The bishop covers this diagonal. And Jorden now b4 played. So Gukesh is pinning all his hopes on this one pawn, one runner who will help him. But if you think about it, b3, ab, ab, the bishop will control the queening square. So Jorden has, great safety net. In fact, he can just go h4, h5, h6, h7. Yeah, exactly, h4. And for Gukesh, maybe the only way to create some chances is b3. And when you take, play a3. So you have the a passer and not the b passer. So he takes, and a3. h5 played, and now a2. Well, the rook is always there to come back if you play a2. Now knight b5 now stops the rook from coming there. So threat is maybe a2, but then the rook comes back. So I think Jorden has things covered. g5. He knows that he could even sacrifice his rook for this pawn, and then maybe these pawns will win the game. So rook d1 calmly coming back. Knight to d4. Gukesh trying to create his chances with knight takes b3. And Jorden, well, he's ready to push his pawns. h6 played. Wow, what a move. What an excellent move. You can't even win the bishop here because of h7. Rook goes there. h7 played. And as we had spoken here, these pawns are just too strong. You simply come back with your bishop, bishop e4, threatening g6, g7. I mean, just give up the rook for this pawn if after knight b3, and white is totally winning. And Jorden, well, he scored an incredible win. Gukesh resigns. Jorden scores his second win of the tournament. Well, Gukesh, he is currently winless, 1 out of 3, and he is in the second last position right now. Not a great start for him. Also, this game quite a sad one for him because he played his prep, and then the moment the prep ended, he blundered. He got his chances after that to hold, but wasn't able to do so. We'll leave you with some final moments outside the playing hall where the fans interact with the players.
Jorden, first of all, huge congratulations on the defeat.